Okay, welcome to the next show of the Not Lame Experience, where we pull, actually not we, me, pull off the shelves of my collection CDs that Not Lame carried many years ago, and there were lots and lots of them, many, many thousands, as I've said before in previous shows. But we are going to talk about one, two, three. I can't do the freaking homie thing. Three CDs here today, and we are going to talk about the Briefs. Sorry about the light; it's kind of funky in my office today. We'll see if we can get that right. The Briefs, Rick Derringer. That is funky with that reflection. Sorry, Guitars and Women. And we are going to talk about the Osmonds, and I'm going to explain a little story as to why we're talking about the Osmonds here. But let's start with the Briefs. This was the last, that would be the back cover. The Briefs were from California, and this last decade, they were a band that I really tried to push at Not Lame because they just rock. I'm an old punker. I was weaned on Iggy Pop, the Stooges, MC5 in the early 70s as a wee little kid in Boston, Massachusetts. And so when the punk explosion hit in 75, 76, I was all over it. And this is a band that is was obsessed with the sounds of 77, in particular the British kind of sounds. But they sounded a lot like the Undertones, the Dickies, the Rosillos, the Attics a little later in the 70s and early 80s. Those sounds were definitely embodied by the band. They always had ripping, razor-sharp guitars, lots of harmonies, and they just rocked. And it's a sound that just resonated with me, and so I pushed them. And a lot of Not Lame folks checked out the band, and I got quite a few emails from people saying, "Thanks for turning me on to that band." So this record here that I'm ripping these songs samples of was from their last record called The Greatest Story Ever Told. And it has 8 tracks live at the BBC and a DVD that comes along with it. That's really cool. And you can hear why the band was probably ready to expire when you listen to the banter in the studio there, which I'm not including below. But more importantly, the band went on to split, and the Cute Lepers came out of them. The leader of the Briefs, Steve E. Nicks, get it? Steve E. Nicks. Very clever. Started the Cute Lepers, and they have 3 records out, which are totally going to be very appealing to many, many power pop ears here, and I highly recommend them. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing a Cute Lepers t-shirt and the video on the PGH homepage where that explains what PGH is, if you check that out. They were here in Fort Collins, Colorado a couple months ago, which reminds me I need to get in touch with Steve. We're going to do an interview with him and feature the Cute Lepers on here. I'm going to try to get some cool songs for you all from that band. So I'm going to get to work on that. That reminds me. Anyway, the Briefs, very, very special band. Rick Derringer. Rick Derringer, in particular, I want to talk about 2 records. This one, Guitars and Women from 1979, and the previous
one, If I Weren't So Romantic, I'd Kill You from 78, which had a ripping band. They were a trio that Rick put together there with Myron Grombacher from Pat Benatar's band and Kenny Aronoff, who was in his previous band, Derringer. By the way, Rick Derringer, the band Derringer, only released 2 records and a live record. Their second one, Sweet Evil, if you're into hard rock, 70s hard rock, kicks ass. It's awesome. Anyway, Guitars and Women was produced by Todd Rundgren. And you can hear his fingerprints and DNA all over this, especially with the vocal arrangements. And there's a lot of really great songs on this record. Definitely some duds. Most Rick Derringer records had some big old duds on them. But generally speaking, in the mid-late 70s, his records, 2/3 of them were just great. And this one holds true to that pattern. There's 2 songs from Rick Nielsen that he gave Rick. Rick Nielsen gave to Rick Derringer. Let's get that down. And they are very Cheap Tricky. And you're gonna dig them when you hear them. The sound's a little muddied. I'm not sure if Todd was having problems with a really loud sounding band at this time and was worried about his ears, not as razor sharp as his production normally would bring to the fore, but nonetheless, really, really good records.
Really good songs. So sample these out. There's a lot of songs on both If I Weren't So Romantic and Guitars and Women that have just great, great power popping sounds, as well as some harder rocking songs and some limp ballads, particularly on Guitars and Women. This is out of print and very rare. It came out in 1998 on Razor and Tie. Went out of print very, very quick after that. It's going to fetch, I believe, around $40, $50 on Amazon. Ouch. And there's no MP3s. I'm going to double check. Last week when I was looking around, I couldn't find anybody that was selling MP3s from them. Why on earth would you not make these available? No wonder why the major labels are going out of business. What? Come on. Just put this stuff up. That's another rant another time. Sorry. I get passionate about this stuff. What can I say? The Osmonds. These two records, they're on a twofer from the UK, and I'll put up some links. You can get this one for a song, I believe. Not a song, a few songs. About $12 to $18. Probably can find this record for. These two records, I can only imagine what happened. Crazy Horses came out in 1972 and The Plan in 73. The Osmonds were hitting big here in the United States in 1970 and 71, doing kind of very teeny boppy, Saturday morning, sappy pop. When these records came out and the kiddies ran out to buy the next new Osmonds record and came home with Crazy Horses, I can only imagine what the little kiddies said, because they probably went running to their mom and dad saying, "What the fuck is this?" Oops, nope, they didn't. I'm sure they didn't say that. But they were very, very confused, because when you put this record on, it rocked pretty darn hard, and it had a lot of post-Beatle-y kind of songs going on it. Example, first song, Hold Her Tight. Total ripoff of the Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin. Listen to it. It's going to crack you up. It's that song. It's a brazen rip. The next song is called Utah, for obvious reasons, since they're Mormon and from Utah, but it will totally reminds me of Blue Ash. From there, there's a song called Girl that has a very Lennon-esque, Badfinger-y, Beatle-y kind of sound to it. And then other songs, which I'm going to include some samples of down here, continue with a very, very strong Badfinger-y obsession. There's no question that the brothers Osmond were listening to Badfinger and were in quite of awe of their ability to channel the Beatles in an updated, more modern sound for that time. No question that that's going on here. Excuse me, the samples that I'm including here are only from Crazy Horses. The album that followed after it, The Plan, while not as consistent and as good as this one, is a really, really solid record as well. And they sold like crap, unsurprisingly, because it was not what people were expecting from the Osmonds. The brothers were sharing songwriting responsibilities and sharing different lead vocals. When you listen to the soundtrack song, the album title song "Crazy Horses," there's a great video which I'm going to include from on YouTube that will just crack you up. Let's leave it at that. It's very, very funny. But they moved back into the more sappy stuff come 1974, 75, 76, and it got a little bit harder to find songs that sounded like these. But if you took all the body of work of the Osmonds that they made from 1970 to about 1976, from a perspective of, power pop fans, us here, you could come up with a really good 2-CD compilation that you would find very listenable. I kid you not. There's a lot of stuff in their body of work. In particular, this twofer right here. Arguably all you may need from this band. Anyway, that is show of the Not Lame Experience. We will talk to you next week, and I have no idea what I'm going to pull off the shelves because I do it pretty randomly. I
just go like this and just go... Sounds good. Let's talk about those. So I hope you enjoy what's being talked about here, and that this turns you on to some bands and some albums that you normally would not have heard about or would have given the time of day. Leave some comments on there. If you're not digging this and you don't like some of the choices here and you think Bruce is high, that's fine. Let me know. I'd love to hear what you think of
think of these particular bands, and let me know and let all of us know. All right.